Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to another installment of the Pathfinder Spellbook. Think of this as a shorter bonus spellbook versus my usual kind, because I'm actually going to be uploading a lot more often going forward. I'm not going to promise anything, I'm not going to set a strict schedule, just in case something comes up early. This isn't a trial run, but expect more Nonat content coming your way. A few weeks ago, I did the arcane cantrips for Pathfinder 2e. Well, it turns out there are only 6 cantrips that differentiate each of the spellcasting types of arcane, primal, divine, and occult. So rather than just repeat myself with slight differences, I'm just going to go over the other 6 cantrips that are available to the 3 other types of spellcasting. I'll be sure to mention which ones get which cantrip, but all 6 of these will be new cantrips we did not see in the arcane cantrip one. If I thought about this ahead of time, I would have mentioned which classes get which cantrips in the arcane one, but if you really want to, you can go watch the arcane cantrip spellbook, and I do put them on screen, so you'll be able to see under tradition which classes get them. So without further ado, let's get this over with. It's going to be over with. Let's get through this. It's going to be a short video. Let's jump into it. Starting off with Disrupt Undead, Primal and Divine spellcasters can use it. It's a 2-action spell at 30-foot range that only affects undead creatures. So already a little situational, but it's a basic 1d6 damage plus spellcasting mod, fortitude save. So if they fail, they take the damage, crit fail, double damage, success is half, crit success is no damage. What's nice though is if they do critically fail, they become enfeebled for 1 round. And enfeebled's a decent, effect, especially against undead, because it basically nerfs all of their physical attributes, strength, dexterity, stuff like that, which undead pretty much solely use that, unless you're fighting something like a lich or something that can actually cast spells. So a decent spell, albeit a little situational. I guess, 1d6 plus spellcast mod on a cantrip is really powerful, so if you're in a very undead heavy campaign, this is going to see a lot of use. But if your DM never throws any undead at you, it's completely useless. This is what makes it interesting as a cleric in Pathfinder 2nd Edition or Druid, that you prepare cantrips. Because you can't just cast any cantrip you want, you need to prepare 5 cantrips per day. So if you know you're going into a tomb, you're gonna prepare Disrupt Undead. But what's nice is that if you know you're not going to be fighting any undead, you don't need to prepare this spell. So because cantrips don't need to be learned and you just have them forever, I like this. Doesn't hold you back in any way. 4 out of 5 stars, a little situational, but very good at what it does. Divine Lance is strictly for divine spellcasters and is weird. So I've never been part of a campaign that uses this, but there is a type of damage called alignment damage. And let me double check this to make sure I'm not feeding false information. Okay, yeah, so some creatures which are so heavily in favor of one alignment, the easy option is angels for good and devils for evil, have a weakness to the opposite alignment. There are also some chaotic creatures which would be weak to lawful damage, and lawful creatures who would be weak to chaotic. Think of it as just this cross of everything hurts everything that's opposite to it. So, Divine Lance deals 1d4 plus spellcasting mod of a damage type of an alignment your deity has. And now this can only be chaotic, evil, good, or lawful. So if you're lawful good deity, you can shoot lawful damage or good damage. So it's situational, sort of like Disrupt Undead, but it can be used against anything, As long as you're not hurting something with the same alignment, it'll still deal at least normal damage. So at its core, it's a 1d4 plus spellcasting modifier, which, it's a ranged attack roll, it's not a saving throw, you just have to beat their AC, and you blast them. And it goes up by 1d4 every 2 levels. It's not bad. I don't know how often I'd be using it. I feel like I prefer Daze, because Daze has a chance to stun. But it's not bad. I feel like I'll give it a 3 out of 5 stars, just because 1d4 plus spellcasting mod is decent, and if you happen to be fighting something super evil, and you can use it as good, it doubles the damage, it's weakness to it. So, it's not bad. 3 out of 5. Forbidding Ward is simple but good. Divine and Occult spellcasters get it. 30-foot range, 2 actions, to target one ally and one specific enemy. That ally gains a +1 bonus to armor class and saving throws against that target's hostile effects, like attacks, spells, and whatnot. So, if you're fighting one super boss and your tank is in the front lines, you cast this on your fighter and you cast it and you target the ogre, he gets a +1 to armor class against that ogre. The downside is you need to sustain it. It's not auto-sustained, so effectively you're granting this bonus but sacrificing one action per round to sustain it, because sustaining a spell is a one-action move. You really have to decide if one of your 3 action points per turn is worth a +1 to armor class and saving throws for your ally. I feel like most of the time, if you're set up correctly, it will be, because most spells are 2 actions anyway, so unless you plan to move or attack, one action isn't going to do you a lot in the back line. So sustaining it's not bad, and once you reach 13th level, it does go up to excuse me, oh my god. It does go up to +2 status bonus. So, at that level, +2 means a little bit less, but at least it does get better. So at level 13, you can give a target +2 to armor class and +2 to saving throws against everything. It's not bad. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I like it. If you're going full support and you want to just keep buffing your frontline fighter, it's a great cantrip. And the fact that it's a cantrip is even better. You can cast it as much as you want. Even if you fail to sustain it one round, you can just re-up it the next round for free without wasting a spell slot. I'll give it 4 out of 5 stars. I like this cantrip a lot. Maybe I'm just rating things highly because I'm still comparing them to focus spells, which were mostly garbage. Although some of you really defend focus spells, and more power to you. I love to see defense in the comments. So if you love or hate anything I've said, let me know. I love to hear what you guys have to say down there. And I apologize if I did not get back to your comments, because I expected, occasionally I'd see that little bell in the corner turn red, and I'd click it, and I'd be like, oh look, I got some comments. But it's not showing me all your comments. So from now on going forward, I'm going to be going into my actual YouTube studio, through each video to check comments, because I love responding to you guys. I love seeing your comments, even if they're just saying, hello, I liked the video. That means so much. So thank you so much for commenting. Keep doing it. It's right for the algorithm. Moving on! Guidance is boring. It's effective, but it's boring. Divine, Occult, and Primal spellcasters get it. You pick a target, and they get +1 to 1 attack roll, 1 perception check, 1 saving throw, or 1 skill check. Basically, any roll, they'll get +1 to. They use that +1, and it's gone. They can only use it once, and it only lasts 6 seconds. So basically, you see your fighter's about to jump, and you go, okay, you ready? Guidance, go! And they run and they jump and they get a +1 to their athletics check. It's good. It's not bad. The target is immune to guidance for 1 hour afterwards. So even if they fail their check, you can't buff them again. So, it's a nice little thing. Again, being a cantrip, that's pretty good. To have a +1 on demand for each party member, pretty good. I feel like this is very much a bard spell, but, a druid and cleric can still use it. Even a divine sorcerer can still use it. It's not bad. I'm gonna dock points for being boring, but I'm also gonna re-add the points for being effective, so I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I like interesting spells, dang it. This one's just boring, but it's really good, so 3 out of 5. No Direction is even more boring than Guidance. You summon up your divine, occult, or primal energy within you. You unleash it! And you know where north is. You turn yourself into a compass. In a survival campaign, this is super duper useful. And I feel like as long as you twist it right, if you're, trying to follow a map or trying to find your way out of a forest, you can cast this and you'll probably get some bonus to your survival checks from your DM because, your DM is nice and likes giving you bonuses. Because it's actually really fun to give bonuses as a DM. It's a simple spell. It is what it is. It does what it does. I can't give this less than a 3, because it's not like it's trying to do something and failing. It's not like it's a bad spell. Finding North is good. And it does get way better at level 15, which I know it's a way long way forward, but at level 15, you can know the exact direction towards somewhere you've been before. So that's even better. You're lost in the woods, you need to get back to the town you were just staying at, and a high level spellcaster that's not arcane can cast this and point and be like, that's the tavern, let's go that way. And then you just go that way and you find your way to the tavern. So it's a good spell. It's so boring. I'm sorry. I like the flashy lights and colors of a fireball. What can I say? 3 out of 5 stars because it does what it does real well. Our final Pathfinder 2e cantrip from the core rulebook. I see some of you commenters being like, you forgot this one from Gods and Magic. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I don't have Gods and Magic. Also, I like to keep things simple. The last cantrip is Stabilize for Divine and Primal spellcasters. Really good, kind of overpowered spell in my opinion. A 30-foot range for 2 actions. You're not dying anymore. For those of you who don't know, when you drop below 0 hit points, you don't go below 0 hit points. If you lose more than that, you stay at 0. Oh my god, I punched you. You stay at 0 hit points unless it does enough damage to instant kill you. And you start accruing stacks of dying every round. You make death saving throws. If you fail it, your dying number goes up. If you succeed, your dying number goes down. If it ever reaches, I believe, 4, you die for good, and your character is gone. Stabilize takes away all of that fear, and you cast it on a dying creature. There's no saving throw, there's no roll, there's nothing. They just stabilize. They don't wake up, but they stay unconscious at 0 hit points and do not keep dying. I believe this does not negate the fact of them being I don't believe this negates the fact of them being wounded afterwards. When you're wounded, your dying threshold goes down, so normally you have to reach dying 4 to die, but if you're wounded 1, which is after being dropped to 0 hit points for the first time, if you drop below 0 again, you become, dying 3 becomes the end of your life, and if you become wounded 2, dying 2, and basically if you go down 4 times in one fight, you die for good. There's no way out of it, because you become dead at dying 1 because of your wounded 3 status, and once you go down, you're automatically dying 1, so womp womp. But Stabilize is way too good, you know. I mean, I feel like if your GM is clever, it's hard to do this without being a jerk, but it's important to note that if the pack of goblins you're fighting downs your rogue, and the cleric instantly stabilizes the rogue when the other goblin is still standing next to him, and the goblin hears the rogue just like and like come back to life effectively, and like, you know, you're not coming back to life, but you're stabilizing. Their breathing regulates. This person seems much healthier. There's nothing stopping that goblin from going, oh, shank, now I'm gonna come after you, and have them dying. And because Stabilize is an infinitely castable cantrip, granted you have to prepare it ahead of time, because you only prepare 5 cantrips per day as a divine or primal spellcaster, except sorcerers, I believe it would be totally believable for an enemy to stab a stabilized corpse to re-die it, and then if you keep stabilizing it, they're gonna keep dying, and their wounded count is gonna go up, and eventually they'll just die from the just pin-cushion of dagger wounds that you kept having this goblin shove into their chest cavity. So it's not as overpowered as I thought. Honestly, if you play it the right way as a GM, it's a pretty fun spell. I think it can actually add to some pretty tense situations. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I actually like this spell a lot more than I thought. And that's it for cantrips in 2e Pathfinder. Starting soon, we're going to be jumping into individual level spells, which is where things will get very interesting and a bit more diverse. Some spells will still be available to each school of magic. No school has a list of entirely unique spells. But I'll be sure to point them out in the future, and we're going to start going, you know, Arcane first level, Divine first level, Primal first level, Occult, and so on and so forth, jumping from each to each, maybe reaching all 9-10 levels of each spell school. Would be cool, would probably take a few months, but hey, if you guys keep watching, I'll keep making these. So thank you for joining me for this longer video than I expected, for only 6 spells. I'm surprised this took almost 15 minutes. But you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Until then, no nat ones.